What I've got here is a situation where a person installing this brand new starter twisted the stud right off the back of this solenoid. This happens quite often. It's supposed to be long like this with a nut on it, but these little studs are made out of copper and they're very soft, and it is quite easy to over tighten these things and end up twisting that stud right off. The solenoid in particular on this unit is almost $60. So in order to do this, you would have to replace this whole solenoid on this starter just for that stud. But in this situation, we can potentially fix this, and I'm going to show you how we would do that. So what we got is busted off stud. You can see the copper down in there, and the stud is broke right off. And what I ended up doing is I got me one of these little rod couplers. You can get these. This is 8mm thread in here, and you can get these rod couplers in the 8mm, but I just happen to not have one, or my local store didn't have one, so I got a 5/16, and then I got myself a 8mm drill and tap. And what I did is I just 5/16 is really close to 8mm. I just stuck this in the vise and I chased through this 5/16 thread, and now it's this end is 8mm and this end is 5/16. And so what we're going to do, there is some stud left on this, so what we're going to do is get in here and remove this nut. There were some washers on here. I've already taken the washers off. And what we've got, and you got to be careful with these things. I'll actually show you what this looks like inside. This is from a GM type alternator or starter. And the nice thing about these solenoid caps on the early GM, these solenoid caps will come off and you can actually replace them. There are two screws down in there holding this cap on, and you can take this cap off. On these, a lot of your foreign units actually roll this edge over on the solenoid, so this plastic cap, you can't remove them. If you break this in here, and these caps will break quite often, this plastic is not that strong, and if you break these, you have to replace the whole solenoid. If you were to break a cap on a GM type unit, you can take these screws out and replace it. And the way the solenoid works is there's a big plunger inside here. A solenoid is an electromagnetic coil, and when you put power to the coil, it engages that plunger and it pulls that plunger back. The plunger hits against this contact right here. The plunger comes back and hits on this, and it pushes this back in. See these two contact discs in here? That plunger pushes back in here really hard. There's a spring on there. The plunger slams back in there and pushes those two contacts against each other. So this copper disc makes contact across these two contacts, and that's as simple as it is. It's just a contact disc and two contactors, and that's all it's doing, is going right across this. Now, one of the GM ones, if you were to break a stud off, you can take these out, and you can just unscrew these. You remove these studs right out of there, and can replace them. But on this one, you can't do that. So we're gonna fabulize this sucker. And what you do, see, we don't have that much thread sticking out on this, and I've got this standoff here, or this rod coupler that I've already lengthened. And now you have to watch this, see, because those will push back in there. So I'm gonna make sure I keep that screw coming out, and it's gonna be delicate. So there it goes. It fits into a notch in there, and on here on this GM tape, I'll show you. There's actually a square. Got a square on this copper, and the square goes down into a square here. So you have to make sure that when you're seating that down in there, you're in that square. You don't want to be up on the top like this and crank it down. You'll be in trouble. You want to turn it till it drops in. Make sure you're seated down in there, and and you can feel it in here. So what I'm going to do is I've got it pulled way out and seated down in there. Then we take a little screwdriver and hold that in there. And then what I'm going to do is thread very carefully, thread this standoff on there, and I'm going to keep pulling it out. I'm going to pull it out as I turn it on to make sure that I'm stayed locked into that point, and then take my wrench and I keep pulling out at it as I go, because I want to make sure that I'm tight up against the, I've got the and whoops, there we go. See, I can drop out of that and I can turn that, but then you want to get locked back into that groove and make sure you stay in there real good. Make sure you're pulling this out as you're tightening it up in there, and crank that in there. Just keep turning it. Get that 8mm and keep pulling that out. It'll make sure there. See, I wiggled it back and forth, and I was able to get it to come out even more. Carefully turn it, back it off a little bit. Make sure you were getting in there, seated in there good as it cranks down. We're going to tighten this up real good. I'll make sure we're continue to get in there real good. So I'm going to work it back and forth a little bit to make sure. Now this is getting real tight. Now you don't want to get too tight in here, because we got a plastic cap here. You can break that plastic cap, and you really don't want to do that. So I'm going to tighten this up real good. I got that real tight. Now if you want, you can Loctite those or whatever, but there you go. Now you've got the 5/16 portion out here. Now, there we go. You can spin that right in there. Spin that nut right down in there. Now you're going to want to be sure that this time when you get your terminal end on here, not only are you going to put a wrench on here, but you're also going to want to put a wrench on here, and make sure you hold that good. 2 wrenches on there, one on this side and this side, and crank that down and hold it off so you're not going to strip that out again, because you already did it once. Now that's how you can successfully replace one of these studs if you've got a broken off stud. This would actually last just as long as the stud, and I would put some grease on there to keep it from corroding and things like that. But this is potentially a lifelong fix, or it's an emergency fix if you're really concerned. You can replace this solenoid, but as I said, in this situation, there's screws. Take these screws out, and then you can pull that solenoid right out of there and replace it. But if you don't want to replace that solenoid, you can take one of these rod ends, these rod couplers, and screw that in there and end up with a really good fix, so this brand new starter can live its life out.